Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Wacom Studio Comics. Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a couple things. I'm mainly going to be doing a quick inking demonstration over top of this in real time. First off, I want to show you a little technique that I've been doing a lot lately. And what it is, I'll call it nudging the line. So say you start off with your rough sketch, something like this. You refine it a bit, you get something like this. But say it's still not quite there. Like one of the things that I see, well, a couple, I guess. One, I think the ear is too high. Generally, the ear lines up to the brow more. So let me drop this down a bit, just a little. I think it can look a little bit high because of the tilt to the head there, but it does look a bit high. So obviously, grabbing your line art, moving it around, and then just refilling in. That's pretty common to do in digital, obviously. The other thing is, when I say nudging the line, this brow looks a little bit too, let's say, out this way, right? So, I mean, not necessarily. There's people that have brows that are a lot, like, really far out or whatever, like something off Simpsons. But, but let's say that we want to nudge this line back. And a quick way to do that, I think that you run the risk is if you start doing this too much where you erase it and redraw it, you sometimes run the risk of maybe making it worse, or maybe just not nailing it, or say it's just really close to what you already want. Nudging the line is simply this, in my opinion, is where you can kind of erase the line almost down. You can fill it back in the other way. And it's a really quick process for kind of moving the line over. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's some great technique where it's going to revolutionize your artwork. But it's little things like that, little adjustments that you start learning how to do with your artwork that can kind of go a long ways. So I just wanted to show you that. If you start thinking about your art in that regard, where, are there ways to fix what you're currently doing, then you save a lot of time, and, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel every time. So, all right, so that's just that one little tip I want to show you there. And next we'll start inking this, and I want to do this in real time because, as you probably know if you watch any of my videos here, I do a lot of time-lapse stuff. It just makes more sense because some of this stuff takes me a little while, but some of it I like to show in real time so you can really get a feel for exactly how I'm doing it. So alright, so this one right here, we'll convert it to blue line by going up here, clicking that icon there. This is our new layer over top. Something else I like to do is, a lot of times I'll take the artwork, let's hold the move tool with Alt, drag it over, Command T, scale it down, just kind of place one up to the side. I'll do this a lot of times now when I'm making changes to my art. I'll keep the beginning stages off to the side. So maybe something like this, and then maybe even my rough stage over to here. And it just kind of shows me the progression of the work. I don't know, I find it helpful. So, and I'll put these back into, oh, not that one, this one here. Okay, so back to our ink layer, leave that at blue, or back to this layer on the top to ink. And I'll just be using the G pen here. I'm currently working on some new brushes, and I'll make those available to you guys as I get them. I'll probably do a couple for free, and then I'll do a couple on my Gumroad or something. So just keep that in mind. Or, if I'm whatever digital platform I'm using, I'll make them available in the description link below. So yeah, so I'll be working on some new brush sets in Manga Studio, probably Photoshop as well. All right, so thought process on this is just basically getting nice thick to thin lines all the way around the form, trying to add areas of interest to the illustration. And simply put, that if you want your illustration to look more pleasant to the eye, then you want to do a nice variation. You want all different types of lines. You want thick lines, thin lines. You want some that are smooth, some that are angular. You just don't want to get in the habit of doing too much of any one thing if you're trying to give life to your, you got to figure this is a basic 2D form that you're trying to convey to the viewer, that it has 3D depth. So to do that, you have to vary up your lines quite a bit. Not to the extent of making your design confusing, it still has to be concise and make sense. But one of the things that gives the illusion of depth when you're inking is good use of shapes of shadows and a nice variety of line work. And then I would say not too many very, very thin lines. Thin lines get lost in stuff like this. And if you do happen to still be doing printed comics, which hopefully you are, it's you know, a lot of the reduction takes this stuff away. You know, so you got to be careful to realize what's really going to be retained in your print, your final end result. And that's to be said, or to be remembered about whatever you're doing. You know, a big question that I get on the channel here is, hey Rob, what resolution do you work at? And my lines look fuzzy, yours look clean, what's going on? And that's all based off resolution. That's based off the size of the file that you're working in. But you also have to remember that all of that is subjective to what your end results are. So I can't really answer that with any level of certainty, because if your end result isn't what my end result is, then it could be a totally different answer. So just keep that in mind. If you're working in print media, a good rule of thumb is right around 300 DPI, at least for small print media. Large format is 72 DPI. I know that because I used to wrap vehicles, and good luck trying to make your image 300 DPI the size of a trailer. It just doesn't work. So or you better have one massive supercomputer to maneuver that file. But at any rate, so this is the process in which I just, you know, go around this. The other thing I wanted to make sure to mention is that you got two different, or maybe more than two different, but I'll mention two different ways of pulling the lines. Another question that I get on this channel a lot is how to get my lines smooth. Is it in my settings? Do I just need more practice? It's a little bit of all that, but the primary thing that I can say is that you have to be aware of your mechanics. And one of the things that I've noticed with my mechanics and the way that I illustrate is I'm more of a sketch type line puller. It doesn't make sense, but I sketch my line like this. And I've gotten pretty good at doing that and still making it look relatively smooth. And basically all I'm doing there is feathering the line when I pull it multiple times to get that that effect. Now the other way to do it is just a quick pull like this. So I would call that like a, I don't know, a sweeping pass, a quick pull, whatever you want to call it. But there's definitely a difference in those two types of lines and what you get. And I think it's important to take note of that and to practice each. Again, not lending too much to either one in your artwork, but definitely making use of both of them. The reason being, there's just certain curvatures on different forms where it makes sense to just quickly pull like that. And you're always going to get a smoother line than as if you feather the line like this. But I like both in my work. I probably lean a little bit more towards the feathering. It's just kind of the way I came up drawing. You know, not a lot of formal education on things like that, except just, you know, like books and tons of practice and going to comic book shows and standing there awkwardly watching some other famous, or not some other, a famous artist drawing as I peered over their shoulder. Sorry guys, I was that goofy kid looking over your shoulder, making you feel uncomfortable. All right, so that's how I would, you know, start filling in some of that. And I want to show you how I do the hair, because a lot of people seem to struggle with this, me as well. I'm still trying to find my chi with the hair here, but I think I'm starting to get it. So same thick to thin line weight, you know, so do like a thin line. Keep in mind too, the thin lines are generally on the light source side. So say this bottom flip of hair should probably have a thicker shadow. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's just style choices, but it's generally what you're looking at. So the areas that have light bouncing off them are going to be a thinner line, and then the shadow side is going to be a thicker line. And then past that, you just do it to add style and randomize the line weight. Now the other thing that I try to do with hair, if you notice, I didn't refine that hair very much. I just kind of gave myself all the directions. I gave myself the spotting of black, but not very detailed. Mainly because I got a pretty good understanding of how I want to do this, so I can give myself kind of cliff notes to what I'm going to do in the next stage. So now I just get in here, spot in a couple larger areas of black, making sure to leave separation in between those areas, a couple little thinner lines to kind of give it some texture. Sound like a hairdresser over here. You want to texturize the hair. Give it a little bit of texture. But yeah, so, you know, just by doing that, you can start to give the illusion of depth. You know, and what I try to picture when I'm doing this, I don't picture that this is just one flat shape. I'm mentally visualizing that it kind of has this roundedness to it. You know, like lasagna noodles. No, you don't want lasagna noodle hair. That's just not cool. But, you know, so just some separation there, you know, little texture lines, a little variety in the line weight. Again, you know, it's always how many little differences you can put in the lines that make it look pretty cool without it just looking too like, you know, like it's not well thought out. You want to always be thinking when you're putting the stuff in there, see what makes sense and what doesn't and all that. But and you know, you just got to remember that you always get the ability to go back and change it. So you don't have to leave it in there just because, you know, you think it's done and you want to move on. Sometimes it does make sense to go back and fix it. Now, when you're working digitally, I'll show you here in a bit how the white ink or whatever, eraser, whatever you're using, is really powerful for fine-tuning the hair texture effect. So I'll do it a little bit darker down here. I'm making sure not to fill it all in though, just because if you block in the whole area, let me show you, scale this brush up. If you block in the whole area here, if the character is not in shadow, then it flattens out that entire area really quickly. So that's why I'm kind of taking the time to do a little bit more separation. Just trying to concentrate here and try to see into this this form. It's looking a little bit bad in my opinion. It's bad, at least right in that area. But okay, and I'll go back to, you know, again, just kind of throwing a shape in the middle. Another one off to the side right here. And keep in mind, the best way to probably get better at this is to look at, you know, some hairstyle magazines or whatever, and just practice studying the photo, but then stylizing your own picture off to the side. That's a very important exercise. Goodness, sorry, I couldn't think of that. To do. I do it more and more as I progress to this stuff, to where, you know, and I'll even take pictures of family members and friends and just play around with the idea. Think of it like you're caricaturing, but instead of caricaturing, you're stylizing into a comic book fashion. And don't trace them. You can. I mean, it's not, I don't know that it's good or bad or whatever, but I think it might weaken you a bit as far as being able to recreate that effect on your own. So what you do is you just kind of study them, use them as a loose guide, and then stylize them. And I'm sure we've all done that. If you're a comic book artist, you've probably played around with that concept, you know, numerous times. But what it ends up doing is it teaches you to look for the right pose and utilize a basic kind of mannequin effect with your, you know, your friends or yourself or whatever kind of thing you get your hands on. Same concept as, you know, if you got a lot of cool action figures, you can pose them up on your mantle or whatever and draw from them. It's really important to be able to do that. So you're not basically tracing the effect, you're just utilizing the you know, the visualization of it and pulling what you need from it, but making sure to, you know, obviously draw in your own style is the part that strengthens your ability, in my opinion anyways. So give that a go. I'm sure you're already doing it, but if you're not, give it a try. Alright, so little flips of hair. That should be pretty outdated, but you know, some people still have it. Okay. So now there's, you know, there's blocking in the majority of it, and you can see I didn't stay exactly to my underlying sketch. I kind of deviated a bit. That's okay. It's just there for, it was pretty rough. It was there to give me a guide to what I was going to do with this part of the inking. Now the other thing that I was going to mention with the white, you can actually use white and black, or you should use both to do this effect. But you can do now, by itself, I think the hair at this stage looks just a little bit flat and boring. But if you do these little lines like this, let me see, it'd probably look better if it come right off the darker area here, like that. Hit X to go to white, and then just make sure to do the little highlight line. And let me add a little bit more shadow to this part of it. So these little lines, I think, go a long ways, especially with things like hair. So, you know, go back to black. Let's do one across like here, like this. It's already against white, so I don't really need to, you know, what I could do is actually do a little bit of the shading against the hair, like this. So I'm just trying to basically make your eyes see that there's like this little strand of hair, but the way that it's showing is the way that the light's bouncing off the you know, topmost area of it or whatever, the highlight side. So little things like that, you know, and you can do those randomly throughout the work. I do this a lot on female hair because there's a lot more of it, so you can really kind of go crazy with it and have fun with it. But it's real easy to do. Just a dark on the underside, a highlight on the top, and I don't know if that one looks right. That looks like a vein on the side of his head. Let's get rid of that one. Nobody wants a vein showing through their hair. That would be bad. Okay, so let's do one over here. Yeah, so you just play around with that idea, you know. You could start with the white first as well. So it's a real easy thing to do, and it's kind of nice to think about stuff like this. Obviously, I'm just doing it with hair here, but you can do it with all sorts of things. It's basically just kind of drawing almost in negative or just with shadow, and it really helps to create a lot of effects. So it's good to practice this. Okay, so on to the rest of the face here. So that's how I would do hair relatively. And the other thing I want to show you is like, all right, with the eye here. I zoom up just a little bit. And back to the shadowing and the highlight kind of thing. So picture that the eye, the top part of the eye is always in more shadow. So we're going to do a darker top eyelid. We'll have it where he has the recessed kind of upper bag of the eye or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but I guess the top eyelid where it's more recessed under the skin fold from the brow. So the bottom part of the eye, I'm going to do very thin and do a line break, so it's non-existent right here. And the reason being is I'm just trying to show that there's a bit of light source right there. So from the top part, everything down, I do more of a shadow. From the very top part of the eye, the iris, I'm going to put a shadow. And I'll put the highlight obviously, but so I'm just kind of keeping all that in mind as I work, where the light source would be. where the shadow would be, and I'm trying to stay consistent with that. And that's really my only way for defining the eye here. Past that, I don't know, I'm just going off my sketch, but right now I'm just thinking about how the shadow would affect it. And then obviously you can get in there and do all your little tiny lines that no one's going to see probably. No, just kidding, people see it, but you know, a lot of that gets lost, so you got to make sure not to do too much. I used to get in there and just do all these little lines in the eye, and I'm like, started looking at my comics when they're printed, and it's like, oh, that was a big waste of time. So, you know, just keep in mind how thin your lines get in certain areas. Now, the other thing to do that when you're working digitally is to not zoom in too much, and I'm guilty of this quite a bit because I just really like detail work. I like rendering, but if you keep zooming in too far, you're gonna really waste some time. So now obviously if you've got a smaller tablet, or I don't know what you're working on, but you got to kind of find that safe zone for yourself. A good way to do it is to ink something or draw it or whatever you're looking to do, and then print it out. So again, this is more if you're working digitally, but yeah, so ink it, print it out at 8.5 by 11, or actual comic size, which I can't remember right now, but it's like 7.87. I don't know, something around there, and then you'll see exactly what your lines are going to do and how much of them get lost in the reduction. Unless, of course, you're working digitally all the way to the end result. But I would still be aware of it, because it's still going to be visually smaller on somebody's screen in the end result than you zooming in and, you know, going crazy with your little lines. So yeah, so you see I just kind of put that top heavier shadow. I repeated the process from, you know, this eye over here. And then sometimes I'll go back and just keep increasing this top line till I get it the way I want. And I'll always make sure to do a little bit of line break, just wherever I feel like there's a little bit of light source. Like if I think there's a light on the bridge of this nose, then I break up that line a bit. Okay, so, oh, I'm missing a shadow over here under this part of the ear. You know, just small little shapes of shadows like that. Little line breaks off the edges of the lines, usually clean them up a bit. Okay, now the other thing is lines that are right next to each other, like this top part of the brow. It's good to not get in the habit of doing this right here. You know, it's just two equal lines. They almost look identical, except one's just a little bit longer. I just think that looks a little bit boring, so I would just recommend maybe doing it more like that. And it's just a small little detail difference, but to me now it says that this larger mass of tissue, or the brow area, is different than the small little wrinkle above it. And just little things like that are just, I think, important to take note of with your line weight and make things a little bit more interesting. Alright, so now the brow, this part always gives me a little bit of a headache. Never know how I want to do these. Kind of bounce back and forth. So you can either outline the shape like that, start to do a little bit of texturing on the inside, or you could just go right to texturing the, you know, sketching in the lines. I guess I like to draw the shape first, more often than not, and then try to texture. But I always feel like it looks really flat like this, so then I usually go back and I'll just hit X for white. Now keep in mind, if you don't want the white to get in the way as you're going to color, I'm not going to color with this, I'm just trying to ink it, so I'm not worrying about it. Just switch to your eraser, not white. You get the same effect. One of the neat things about Manga Studio is any brush can become an eraser as well, so lots of great effects for that. Yeah, so I don't know, something like that. It's not perfect, but eyebrows seldom are perfect. So again, kind of define the shape. I'm going to give a little bit more ridges to the edge right from the start, and just get in there and brush in some eyebrows like that. Oh, the other thing that I like to do too, if you notice, is I'll do a line and I'll do like a tiny little line off the edge of it. I don't know why, I just think it looks better. It's like it just gives a bit of a trail to the first line. And then all this other little stuff that I do is just rendering. That's all just style choices. Totally up to you what you want to try there, but I'll take a particular design and just kind of play around with it and practice just my render lines. Oh, and one last thing I want to show you is the shadow under the neck here. A lot of times when I'm working in Manga, I'll just add a layer. Rotate this because I'm better at feathering lines with a downward pull. And I'll define the shape of where the lines are going to go, like this. I'll probably do just a shadow on this side. Something like that. And now I'll start feathering my lines, but since I put it on another layer, I don't have to be perfect about it. I don't have to worry about hitting the other part of the design. And it just makes the lines come out better for me because I'm not so worried about, where they're overlapping, what they're hitting or anything like that, because I can erase back if I need to. So just a little quick, trick there for you. It's definitely use those layers to the best of your abilities or to your advantage. And this is that feathering process again where I'm actually pulling that line multiple times. You can see I didn't go too far outside of the edge anyways, but I got the ability to go back and erase, no worries. Double click my rotate button, pan back a little bit. Yeah, that's it. That's our inked version of our character. You just kind of keep getting in there and detailing, obviously, and just keep taking it further and further. Add more little render lines, whatever you want to do. But that's essentially how I would ink a basic character like that. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If it has, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Helps me progress the channel, so I appreciate that. Let me know in the comments section below what you like, what you didn't, what you'd like to see in the future. And as always, keep drawing, keep having fun. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.